Howdy folks, welcome to Camera Shake, where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. We spent literally hundreds of hours interviewing some of the most renowned photographers of our time, giving you access to knowledge and expertise that's not available anywhere else. As ever, I'm your host, Kersten, and in today's episode, you're going to learn how to kickstart your business, create your own unique style, and everything there is to know about hand-painted backdrops. So buckle up, grab a cold one. Let's shake it up with today's award-winning guest right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 141, with today's special guest, the award-winning Manchester-based, or Wigan-based, I should say, photographer, the brains behind hand-painted backdrops and owner of SK Photo Art, the business mastermind that is none other than Slav Kondratovic. I hope I've pronounced your name right.
You did great. Thank you very much.
Right, Slav, how are you today? You good?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on this podcast. So yeah, it will be really interesting talk, I think.
Absolutely. Hand-painted backdrops are a really interesting subject. In any event, and for those of you viewers who can watch this on YouTube, and actually that being said, if you are listening to the audio version of this, of course, remember that there is a fully fledged, fully technical version over on YouTube. But if you are watching on YouTube, you might notice Slav's perfectly color coordinated image. Your backdrops look phenomenal.
Thank you.
How did you first get into creating your own hand-painted backdrops?
Well, when I start photography studio in about 2016, I think, I start developing this style where it's like a painterly style. It's like the dark hand-painted backdrops. Up to now, I still like those dark images. It's my style. So, and I've been looking for the nice hand-painted backdrop, which can show something more than the paper. Paper for me is very boring, and vinyl, it's reflecting the light, and I did not feel this, vinyl and paper. So I decided to buy some hand-painted backdrops. I call a couple of reputable companies in Europe, and they kind of don't provide a great service. So they on the phone, they have not been polite to me. They don't listen to me. They don't listen to my requests. Wave was very quick to take my money, though. But obviously, for obvious reason, I did not go with them, and I decided to try myself. And I started painting those backdrops, and one by one, I start improving myself every time. And in some time, people start asking me, photographers start asking me, Slav, can you paint those backdrop photos? And I start painting little by little, maybe 1 or 2 a month. It was like a more side hustle for the photography. And I had a little bit of the background jobs as well, which is great. Photographers love those backdrops. Obviously, when I look now for those backdrops, it's like, why do I sold them? It's all, they not been great. Now I improved, and my backdrops look completely different. But people been liking those backdrops. People been buying. We've been recommending to other photographers. And when COVID hit us, we did not have much photography jobs. So I started pushing my backdrop side. And from there, it started growing. So now I full-time backdrop painter, and occasionally a photographer.
Fantastic. How did you get the knowledge? I mean, how did you figure out how to create hand-painted backdrops?
I've been checking all the good painters, hand-painted backdrops, masters, and trying to learn from images, from what we do maybe in reels and stuff like this. And I developed my own technique. I don't know if anybody painting in similar technique when how I paint. Yeah, I think I developed something unique to me. I'm not sure if many, probably some hand painted backdrops mastered painting very similar technique, because it's not like a rocket science. But I think I find my style myself, so I did not go for the courses and stuff like this till I learned. When I learned how to paint, and I've been happy enough for what I'm doing, I've been on one of the courses how to paint the backdrop, and I just get from there a couple of nuggets how to paint. It's just a very, very slight improvement, but obviously this course helped me to pinpoint some things what I've been doing wrong and get some ideas how to do those better. And that's all, 99% of what I do, it comes from my heart and brain and soul.
Did you look at it from a photographer's point of view? I mean, I'm guessing that's what you did, where you kind of thought, well, okay, I'm using this hand-painted backdrop, but wouldn't it be cool if it could be done a little bit differently?
Yeah, basically, I've been painting, and I always painting the backdrops for stock, like I would paint for myself. So for my photography style, I don't like really a lot of texture on the backdrop, because it's not my style. But if customers requesting to paint the custom backdrop with some texture, I do this, yeah, no problem. But if I painting the stock, if you go to my website, you will see most of them very soft texture, is some vignetting, and it's most of them have the center of the backdrop slightly brighter. So that's how I photographing. That's how what I like. And by the way, also you probably will notice most of those backdrops are dark. So because I'm a dark shooter, I tried few times to photograph in lighter images. They okay, but customers like it, but it's not for me. It's not my style. And yeah, I think when I painting the backdrop, I see this backdrop how it will perform on the image, but obviously I see through my perspective as a me photographer. Every photographer is slightly different, and every photographer see the finished image differently. But because I'm a photographer, I can relate to this and paint with photography in mind.
So let's talk about different types of backdrops, because I'm guessing for a lot of our listeners and viewers who may never have used a hand-painted backdrop, what's the main difference between, let's say, a paper backdrop, a fabric backdrop, and vinyl, and something like a hand-painted backdrop?
So if we start talking about difference between these backdrops, the main difference is exclusivity. The hand-painted backdrop, it's only one of the kind. So you can see burgundy red behind me, and if you ask me to paint exactly the same, I would say no. I can paint similar, but not the same. But if you buy anything printed on vinyl, painted muslin, or printed muslin, or something like this, is or paper, especially just normal colorama paper, Tom from around the corner photographer can take exactly the same color and produce exactly the same image as you do. So it's not kind of every backdrop where I paint is different, and it's exclusive only to this photographer who is on this backdrop. So that's the main difference. If we look, for example, vinyl versus hand painted, those gonna be vinyl usually reflects the light, and it does not look professional. Hand painted backdrop also have no idea why it feels like it have some depth which you can't get with any other material. So you see backdrops behind me and you can see it's like depth in color, you know. I mean, you can't explain why it's happening. It's happening only on canvas. Muslin backdrops, in some cases they are okay. If you want to travel light with large muslin backdrop, here we go, you can do that. Make sure you're carrying good steamer, because you will need that, and it's a nightmare to get those wrinkles out and put the muslin like is like it looks to look naturally, you know, and stretched and stuff like this. So that's main differences between the backdrops.
Yeah, I mean, I have a number of gripes with paper and muslin backdrops. So my paper backdrops tend to kind of show some sort of texture, like they kind of crumble a little bit, and you can see where it's been rolled up. So it really means, you know, I have to spend quite a lot of time in Photoshop afterwards and, like, you know, fixing all these little imperfections, and it's highly annoying. You know, my fabric muslin backdrops, you're right, it's a nightmare to make them, to smooth them out and to even them out. You know, what I tend to do is I stretch them across the stand. So you put a crossbar on the top and then the two stands, and so I basically clamp the sides onto the stand, so I stretch the whole thing out. But what I tend to do is, you know, I tend to set up, if I know I have a shoot the following day, I set up the evening before so that it can hang overnight, and then, you know, most of the folds will sort of sew themselves up. But it's a pain in the neck, you know. It just means,
yeah. Don't get me wrong, the canvas backdrops creases and can get those wrinkles as well, you know. But the hand painted backdrop, when it's crease and when it get weathered, it look even better. When it's paper, is not, isn't it?
Yeah, with paper it just starts to look tatty, and it's a, you know, it's forever battle. You know, that's the thing. I think, you know, what I love about hand painted backdrops just generally is the fact that they are, by their very nature, you know, they have this sort of patchy, you know, almost like three-dimensional look.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say, isn't it? It's kind of this depth in them which you cannot explain why it's happening, but it's happening.
Yeah. And of course, it's, you know, you mentioned the, you know, the photographic style, or you described it as painterly earlier. And that really works. I think it's a really great description, because, of course, you know, paintings are painted on the same sort of material as the backdrops, and so it all works together. And so it's almost like a classic look that we're almost used to by, you know, looking at these old masters type of paintings.
Yeah.
There's another thing you mentioned earlier. It's the fact that every backdrop is unique. And of course, that's a part of the manufacturing process, I guess. There's just really because it's all handmade, there's literally no way of making two backdrops, even if it's the exact same color. There's literally no way of making them look identical.
That's right. Even if sometimes I'm painting two backdrops, same color, same day, on the same floor now, exactly the same, they will be slightly different. Because while you painted one layer, you're painting another backdrop, same layer. When coming back to this backdrop, this layer is dried, and this backdrop layer will be dried even more till you come back from this backdrop to this backdrop. And that means they will, the colors in the layers mixed will be different ratio, because they will be drier. So, and that's it, you know. Same day, same Slav, same backdrops, same rollers, completely different look.
Yeah, I take it. I mean, I guess the canvas will pick up the paint slightly differently in different places as well. So it's just really no way you can have any control over that.
Yeah, it's true. It's depends how wet the canvas is at this moment, and it's just even not just the canvas, even the roller, isn't it? Even depends how much paint you will get on the roller every time you're taking it on the canvas.
So how do you broadly judge the sort of colors? Because I know you've got some, I'd say, like standard versions of the backdrops, sort of a standard, color palette. How do you get them as close as possible?
To the standard ones, I try to use similar colors, but I don't try to get them as close as possible. That's the idea. They're unique.
Right.
So basically, the customers who are ordering from me the backdrops, they know we will get similar, but different. So basically, if they want olive backdrop, I will ask them, do they want it a little bit darker, little bit lighter? Where are you heading to? So I want direction from the photographer. So if you want darker feel, I will go for darker. If you want lighter feel, I will go for lighter. In my stock images, you can see both this one and this one, lighter and darker styles, just to, photographers can pick. So sometimes I'm painting a little bit more saturated colors, sometimes little bit more muted colors. And that's how I build my stock. But I don't try to make them same, because that's the idea. They need to be, individual, isn't it?
What's the most popular color?
Olive, gray. Sometimes, the people really like my pink ones.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the pink ones goes very well. And there's a photographer called David Shokri. He's using a lot of my backdrops. He's even photographing them men on the pink backdrops, and look fantastic. So yeah, it's even, like I said, yeah, even men's been photographed on my pink backdrops, and they look cool.
What are a few things people should look out for if they're using a hand painted backdrop for the first time?
It's very individual, isn't it? It depends on their style. I can't tell what we need to do. I think what I trying in my photography, I can tell you what I do. I trying to light my subject across the face, not straight into the face. So my lighting always in the side of the subject, and that, for some reason, when I keeping my subject about a half a meter to meter away from the backdrop, it's minimizing the shadows on the backdrop, and it's nicely lit the backdrop as well. But again, we're talking about the styles. Depends what the photograph is for. If that will be a headshot, I will make the lighting differently. If that's the woman in about 50 or 60-year-old, I will light her differently. For the man, I will light him slightly different, because I want more dramatic lighting for the man. And in same terms, for the woman, I probably will have a wide reflector, and I'm usually using those V-flats, massive ones, to reflect nice and soft light. And same for the man, I will probably have the black reflector. But again, I will try to control the light and bring it further down or closer to make sure the backdrop lit properly. The one more thing what I usually do, if the backdrop become too dark and it goes into the shadow and I can't see the backdrop texture and stuff like this. So I trying, because I have a very small studio, I trying to put couple of lights maybe behind me and shoot just bare bulbs into the white wall and lead those shadows. But those lights were just for the shadows, just to bring the shadows up and make them, not fall to the darkness completely. So
you're just creating a little bit of fill light.
It kind of
bounce light. Yeah.
Yeah, they're bouncing. So it's like so when the process is this: when I bouncing those lights, I switching off the key light, so it's completely dark. I'm bouncing those lights from the white wall, 1 or 2, depends what I want, how much light I want, and I just look to make sure the blacks are slightly above the 0, so the shadows are lit. That's all I want. And then I switching up key light and balancing them slightly maybe together if I need to, and that's my lighting. So 2-3 light setup for the normal portraits.
Let me just say a quick thank you to our sponsor, DVE Store. DVE Store's mission is to help you create better video and provide you with the tools necessary to explore your creativity. If you have any digital video equipment needs, whether that's camera equipment, audio gear, or lighting, and much more, you can check them out at dvestore.com. Thank you to DVE Store for the high-def video. And of course, you can find a link to DVE Store in the description. So my setup is very similar, actually. It's my shooting space is also very small. It's small in terms of width, but it's relatively long, because in my shooting space sort of is an extension to the house, and then there's my editing space, and then there's the living room. So, the space is relatively long, so I can't really bounce anything, off of the wall behind me. But what I do is I have a big, 6-foot softbox or octabox that I set up behind me, and that just shoots sort of a minimum of light back into the scene, so I can light everything up that way. And since the walls in my shooting space are all painted white, I can utilize the ceiling and the walls as well, just to bounce some light back into the scene.
It's the same idea, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Same idea.
Yeah, it's just to lift the shadows up just a little bit, so we're not losing, blocking up the shadows and losing too much in there. So in terms of handling a hand-painted backdrop, what do people need to look out for when it comes to hanging them or even storing them?
Well, my hand-painted backdrops comes on aluminum cores, so aluminum pipes. Smaller backdrops, like you can see behind me, they comes on a wooden core. So to put them easily on the stands, you might notice I have some fancy clamps. Those, I selling those clamps too on my website, and we call them Nichelini clamps. You can buy the real version of them. They call Maffellini clamps. They quite expensive but very handy. They're not been designed to hold the backdrops. They've been designed to put the lights everywhere you want. But those lips, they quite good to hold the backdrop. So I have the C-stand behind this backdrop and this clamp. So now behind me, it's a 3 C-stands and 3 clamps, and all these 3 backdrops are holding by those clamps. Very easy to change the backdrop. It takes 2 minutes just to take it off, roll it back, roll it back up, and put another one. That's it, so if you have a client, you need to change the backdrops quickly. That's the way to go. If people buying 2.7 meter backdrop width, they can use these backdrops on the backdrop systems and keep them there. For the smaller ones, I shipping them in the cardboard tubes. So if the shipping companies will not destroy them completely, you can still store in those tubes. Usually, if the tubes are too much, for the photographers, maybe space issues, stuff like this. I would always say put them, or what is it called? Standing. Make them stand. Don't lie them down, because if you lie them, they will develop this kind of the lines. So when you unroll the backdrop, you can see those lines. So try never put them down on the floor. Stand them up somewhere in the corner.
See, that's one of the issues I actually have with one of sort of a medium grade paper backdrop, and you can see the lines exactly. Although I keep storing it standing up, but I have a suspicion that before it was shipped, it may have been stored flat. So that's,
maybe your studio is a little bit damp.
Could be sometimes, yeah.
So then, if you're picking up the dampness and when heating kicks in, it can take this shape where it was. So it's, in completely honesty, probably, if you will store in damp environment the hand-painted backdrop, it's gonna be the same, So it's not the hand-painted backdrop. It's very tough to destroy, but it's not destroyable, So you can destroy it too, I can tell you one problem what comes with hand-painted backdrops too. Okay. Do you want to know?
Absolutely.
They become quite addictive,
Yeah, I bet.
I have probably, off the top of my head, about 50% of my clients buying multiple backdrops over the year time.
Right.
Because they want those choices when it comes with colors and textures to match the outfits what the client bringing. So that's why I always saying to start from gray, because it's really good for any outfit, pretty much, from white to black, and any color will suit you too. And also it takes good color grading, so you can get it colder or warmer, which is not the case, for example, with the red one. It would be quite hard to make it, colder. It's always like more warmer color, isn't it? So that's exactly the reason why people buying multiple backdrops over the year. They trying one and they fell in love with canvases, and they buying more and more and more and more, because it's just a kind of addiction. They can, when you start photographing on the canvases, you cannot go back on the paper unless clients requesting you, for the paper, for the clean backdrop.
Yeah, it's a very distinctive style, and I think when I look around, especially the headshot world or the headshot and portrait world, which is photographically the world that I'm in most of the time. There's some photographers with very distinctive styles. Like Ivan Weiss, for example, is a really good example. He's a great headshot photographer and portrait photographer based in London. And his work is pretty much exclusively shot on hand-painted backdrops, I think. So it really adds to that style. Let's talk a little bit about different sizes, because I know you make backdrops in lots of different sizes.
Yeah. So I starting from a very small 100 by 135, which is good for the headshots, or stacking something like this when you can see on the video here. So this actual backdrop behind me is 122 by 180, so 4 by 6. It's slightly wider, in about 12 centimeter wider, and it's longer. But if I would have only small one, extra small, I would use extra small here as well, with no problem. So the next size is this 4 by 6. When I have 6 by 9, which is good for, depends on lens you will be using, but it's good for almost full length photography for 1 or 2 people. But I would probably use 70-200 and somewhere in between, the focal length for that. And you need to be quite far away to fit full length. Probably about 85 mil, I think, is just usual portrait photography lens, isn't it, in focal length. And then I have a 9x9, which is 270 by 270 centimeter, and then it's going only with length. So I'm making up to 4.3 meters. Sometimes people like the sweeping, backdrop. I personally don't. Many photographers do. So that's for this purpose, the longer backdrops. In my studio, longest backdrop I use it 2.7, which is just go into the floor, and that's it, because I like a hard definition between floor and wall. So I see the proper perspective, where is the floor and where is the wall. So where the client's standing. Because I usually see, especially on the paper or on what is it called, cyclorama. And if it's lightened from all sides, it's just become no shadows underneath the person, and you don't understand where the person is in perspective, or is it flying, or is it glued into the wall, or is it on the floor. So that's why I don't like those sweeping backdrops. So I always trying to convince photographers not to use this, use something for the floor, even laminate flooring, maybe vinyl flooring, maybe another backdrop as well, but make this straight line between the backdrop and floor to make sure there is a perspective there,
And of course, they work really well in corners as well. That's the other thing that I really like.
Yeah, the photographers using in the corners and also stacking like this, which is creating the perspective and creating the, especially when you have a small studio, stacking backdrops and even creasing them slightly, and maybe stacking them into the perspective, into the camera, give the illusion for the viewer it's the biggest space is bigger. You can create the space with the textures on the backdrop.
It's also, I like it when backdrops are kind of layered a little bit, so they're kind of almost like, lay it up against each other, and you get that sort of almost behind the scenes feel where you can actually see some of the stands and the floor and everything else. It just gives it that really that kind of classic Hollywood look, I think. That's how I always imagine it.
They're pretty much like you see now, isn't it?
Exactly, absolutely.
That's the free backdrops, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. It's, it always reminds me of old imagery from like the 1920s and 1930s, like old Hollywood.
Right.
When you see the behind the scenes images of, I don't know, like old Hollywood productions, you could see all the lighting stands and the lights potentially in the frame as well, plus.
And the same Vanity Fair, Annie Leibovitz.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, that's a great look to go for. So how do you determine the right amount of texture for a backdrop?
Oh, that's the tough one, because when photographers buying the backdrops, they don't think about one aspect as a depth of field, and they asking me often, that's what we see on other photographers' work. So, for example, we say, Slav, I want a backdrop which is very soft texture. It's almost invisible texture. It's soft and creamy, I asking what kind of lens do you use, how far your customer or model from the backdrop usually standing, how far you are standing to the, in relationship for the backdrop, customer, model, talent, whatever we call it, isn't it? And the camera, what is the distance, and what f-stop do you using. Because if you like this look of almost invisible texture, like you probably see now on my backdrops, and you're using 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, and I will paint you very low texture, that will become just colorful wall. No texture will be existed there, because your depth of field just will blur everything off. So I always asking what kind of f-stop you're using, what lens do you use, and what the distances is between the customer, talent, your camera and backdrop, because that will determine how blurry backdrop will become. If they're using f10, f11, f16, that makes sense. I will paint very, very low texture. If we're using low, very wide open aperture, that's it. I can't paint this. I need to paint more texture to let them blur this out of with lens.
It makes perfect sense, but I think most people probably don't consider that when they first look at hand-painted backdrops.
That's the thing. We always considering this outside when we're shooting, and we always see this through the lens and on the images. But when it comes to the studio photography, for some reason, this not bringing it to the consideration. No idea why. But when people buying the backdrop and asking me some questions, and when I come to this part when I'm talking about the f-stop, we always 90% of the people surprised. Even professional photographers that really, oh yeah, so it's making perfect sense. But I did not think about this, For some reason we don't. No idea why.
This is where we interrupt our regularly scheduled programming for a new segment that we call What is Dave Up To Now?, where we follow Dave Williams and his latest adventures due north.
Hello, Camera Shake Podcast. It's me, Dave Williams. I'm in Norway, still in Norway, and in fact, I'm going to break some news soon and you're going to see a lot more of me in Norway. Firstly, I apologise for the noise. It's the sound of my heater. There's a massive storm. It's basically a hurricane rolling through. Winds are gusting at 90 miles per hour, and they have been all day with crazy wind. And my skylight just there is leaking. So I've got my heating cranked to 30 degrees to dry everything out, and then I'm going to fix it, but I need to wait for a gap in the wind. Anyway, that's not the point. The point I want to make to you today is bad weather. I have been out in this hurricane taking photos because bad weather makes for great photos. Usually when a storm passes through, just after the storm, we'll get a break in the light, but the clouds are still hanging around. We've got really dramatic, moody skies, choppy seas, epic landscapes. Bad weather makes for great photos. That is what I want to leave you with today. But right now, I got to go fix that skylight. Thanks very much. See you next time. Bye.
That's really great advice. Slav, let's talk a little bit about the business side of things, because one of the things that I got from, especially from some of your YouTube videos, is your knowledge of the sort of business and marketing side of things. So when you first, I think you mentioned at the beginning, during lockdown, when for most of us photographers, business wasn't exactly at its height, you decided to branch out more into the backdrop business. What was your first sort of step in that marketing your business at the time?
Well, I start show my work in the Facebook and Instagram, isn't it, and sharing this work into the photography community. Also, I start producing more backdrops because the COVID cannot restrict me to go to my studio alone and paint the backdrop, isn't it? I driving my car, I'm alone in the car, I'm coming to the studio, I can paint the backdrop completely alone, and I come back home. So it's no restrictions for this. If I can't work from home, I have to go to the workplace, isn't it? So I start painting more backdrops, and I start showing those backdrops to the photography community. And at the time, COVID made something very interesting in the people's minds. They had money because government gave those money, but we could not spend those money on a holiday, on something like this. So the people been spending on home improvements and gear as well. Because China stopped and Canon was not produced, I've been lucky enough to have this opportunity to sell to the customers. And customers, photographers, was building those backdrops on COVID time while we had this desire to spend money, and they know we will come on other side anyway. So we've been investing in those backdrops and learning how to work with them while we're locked at home. It makes perfect sense, because they can try with family and improve their art, what we do with actual backdrop, and build those sets and bring those sets into the studio when we're ready to invite the clients again. So that is my start. But it's often people asking me how long it takes to paint the backdrop. Really, to paint the backdrop, it's not that long. It's not take too long. The longest time is a drying time, not the painting time. But when you know how, so when you develop your system, when you wasted hundreds of meters of the backdrops, canvas and paint, and when you know how, it does not take a very long time to paint, and it's just drying time. But the another thing, to sell those backdrops, that's where the time is. I can sit all day and do something in admin stuff, don't create any backdrops, and maybe don't sell any backdrops. But those stuff what I'm doing now is like a delayed gratification. They will bring something later on when I will sell. I could be in my studio, not painting the backdrops, sitting on the computer and doing some work, like I'm creating the content, creating the images, retouching those images, contacting the photographers, because I'm alone in my studio, nobody helping me. So I do everything from painting the backdrops to customer service, to sales, to payment management, to everything. Everything what you need to do in a business, that's what I do. So it takes a lot of time. I don't know if I am very good a businessman, but I try my best, and I survived a couple of weeks ago. I survived 1 year, full year in business without working full time somewhere. So it's completely only my income now.
Right. Which just goes to show, when you're creating a really top-notch product, it'll, people will buy into it. So.
Can I stop you
Sure.
there and say something about the top-notch product?
Yeah.
Even you growing the best carrots in the world, if nobody know about those carrots, it's no point, isn't it?
No,
so
absolutely.
that's where the marketing comes.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing about marketing. Early on in my photography career, I had sort of an eye-opening conversation with a friend of mine who was she's a business consultant, basically, and she'd actually just set herself up as a standalone, a business consultant. So she set up her own practice, and it's very early days. And I remember we knew each other from the music industry before, and so we were chatting, and she said, I asked her, like, how's it going? how you're finding it being on your own and stuff. And she goes, yeah, it's tricky at the moment because I'm trying to land more. I need more clients, but I don't have many clients at the moment. And I said to her, oh yeah, that's frustrating. I can sympathize from a photography point of view. And I said, so what are you doing? And she goes like, well, I was spending a lot of time marketing. So since I'm not actually servicing clients at the moment, I can make use of that time and market my services. And I thought, well, that's an important thing to remember, because rather than just sitting around waiting for people to ring your doorbell or give you a phone call, you actually need to be proactive in marketing your product in order to bring it out in front of eyeballs, so to say.
Yes, and also you're completely right. Don't stop marketing, because sometimes people also marketing in the waves. It's like, oh, I will market this month, and for next month they fully booked and they stop in marketing. And next month they again stressing out because they don't have clients. So you need to do marketing consistently, and also don't be afraid to follow up on people. If I would not follow up on the photographers who want my backdrops, I would not make 50% of my sales.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
Doesn't mean you salesy. The people just forgot about you. It's just not this life just going on, and something happens and they want your product. So don't think you become a salesy kind of person when you following up. You're not. You're giving the favor. You're making the favor for the customer, because you're reminding about what he forgot and he really needed this. Same with photography. The clients today want a portrait taken, even the headshot for the business, but he become busy and he forgot about this business headshot. And the business headshot maybe make him 3, 4, 5 times more money than he making now, and make him less busy and create more time for being with his family or she's family, and spend maybe more money on holiday. That's what we as a photographers creating. It's not just a headshot. So don't be afraid to contact those people and remind them about yourself and remind them about the importance of the headshot. So that's a little bit on us, to be a little bit salesy.
Absolutely. I mean, marketing is such an important thing, especially when it comes to, managing your time and putting in that regular time for marketing. Whether that's something like, whether you do something like Marketing Monday, or whether you do something like, I had a conversation with Joel Grimes a little while ago, and it's very interesting because his story goes, the way he became successful was by just simply doing more marketing than any of his competitors. And he basically made it a thing. Like, it was like the first hour of every day he just spent on the phone calling companies, literally cold calling companies in the phone directory, offering his services. And then he had like a Rolodeck, and he would basically register exactly what the response was, and then he would follow up, and he would do that consistently every day, and to the point where he said he put his little table with all of his, like with the phone book and the phone and his Rolodeck, and he would put that table so that it would block the door to his office, so that he would be reminded every day that was going to be the first thing that he had to do. And it seems that kind of persistency obviously pays off over time.
Yeah, but that's only few people can do this. Other people have something called fear of rejection.
Of course.
And if they've been rejected 10 times, 11th is very tough for them. And what I actually one of those as well. For me, it's very easy to fall off of the track because of fear of rejection. Mainly, but the fear of rejection, when we know it exists, it can be when you catch this fear of rejection, you feel it, you can feel it, and just push it away and you know that's the fear of rejection. It's nothing wrong with you. You just go and calling again, you know.
Yeah,
Go
absolutely.
and contacting people again.
I think, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, especially in sort of artistic professions, you know, no matter whether it's, you know, photography or maybe acting, you know, drama or music in particular, you know, rejection really just becomes part of your everyday existence. You know, as a musician, I've been rejected for auditions so many times, you know, that it just became a normal thing. This, you know, it's this thing where you have to learn to manage your own expectations. You know, so I think there was a point where, especially in music, you know, where my expectation was to be rejected. And that's fine then, because you can live with that. And if that's your base expectation, and every time you get a callback, it's like, whoa, okay, cool. It's a little bit like, you know, drinking too much fizzy drink or something. You go, wow, somebody called back. Excellent. You know, but it's, you know, it didn't distract from the sort of day-to-day, you know, the day-to-day business of just, you know, carrying on, you know, marketing yourself, you know, whether that was, I remember whether it was cold calling or whether it was, you know, whatever they call it, cold emailing, or whether it's following up on things. It was just a matter of persistency. You know, I used to say to myself, like, if I don't contact anyone today, I'm pretty much guaranteed not to be successful today. It's really as simple as that.
Yes, for example, if you are a portrait photographer, do you think somebody wake up today and think, oh, I need today have my photo shoot. I want to buy photo shoot today. Not many people waking up like this, isn't it?
Absolutely.
We need to be reminded of the importance of the photo shoot, of the images created, you know, the memories and stuff like this. Then no one waking up today and thinking to be photographed.
Exactly, and you know what's very important is to you know, make sort of a value-added proposition. Like for instance, take corporate headshots, for example. You know, what does a corporate headshot actually do for your business? You know, other than it just being a pretty picture on your website. You know, but if you're a small business, for example, it can, you know, it can enhance the image of your business, can make you look more professional, and therefore people will have a different idea of what your business is about, and all the rest of it, all the added value that comes with, you know, having professional photography on your website.
Well, I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago about similar value, but I go a bit deeper, isn't it? On a family time, because if you make more money, you can have more time with your family. You can be more successful, and you can employ more people to do work for you, and you spend more time with your family and going on holiday. It's not just about business, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Behind the business, it's a person, isn't it? We'll have most of those entrepreneurs have families and don't have time.
You talked a little bit about something that I found really quite interesting in one of your videos, and it was sort of the selling without selling, how to pitch to clients. What would be your advice to photographers starting out?
I've been talking on this video with one of the professional salesman, which is selling without selling, and he's his name is Ian Genius. In selling. He's very cool. You can follow him on LinkedIn. He's mostly on LinkedIn. So Ian Genius, and he helping people to compare the services easily for the clients. So if I will probably not explain this as good as him, so you might refer people to this video, and it's a little bit more in depth, but it's basically, the idea is the people cannot compare what is uncomparable. So free time, when I say the business owner will have more free time, how much more? How many free time I will get if I will have this headshot on my website. So that's where your research coming up, you know. So you calling existing clients and asking, like, having the conversation. So hi John, hi Slav, how are you? How is your business going? Oh, we're great, you know, we're thriving. So what do you think? How is the headshot been part of it, and is it make your business a little bit better? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was better. So how better? I don't know. So how much more sales do you do? I don't know. So roughly, how much sales would you do? Well, 20 sales per week. And how much you've been doing before the headshot been changed? Well, maybe 12. So you can make 8 more sales per week after the headshot been done. Yes, roughly. Well, call it 6, because it's not every week, or even call it 4. So how much per sale you making? So, well, I'm making about £300 per sale. So if for sale by £300, so £1,200 per week more. So how much more are you making per year? You know, so we have 50 weeks. It's we're taking some holidays off maybe and stuff like this. So even maybe 40 weeks, isn't it? Working. So how much more you're making? You're making 40,000 odd on top. So what you can do with your 40,000? And when you compare like 1, 2, 3 or 5 clients like this, they first of all they will realize how much more we're getting after the headshot, because we never count, we don't know. And that way we might refer their friends to you as well. Listen, I had this fantastic headshot photographer and we just counted, you know, I made 20 or 40,000 more per year when I changed the headshot. Obviously, something more probably been changed as well. Maybe website been improved, maybe some pitch been improved. But really, I made this year when we changed the headshot, I made so much more money. Do you want to have the headshot and do the same? You know, first of all. Second of all, when you have the 10 or 15 photographers, you can make a idea how much more people, how people benefiting of your work. Not necessarily the headshots, it's anything. And that way you can compare. So I charging for headshot, for example, £300 for 3 images. If you make 20,000 on top per year, what is return on investment? You know, and you know these figures because you asked. And that's how you can explain the customers, future customers, how your headshot can help them to free the time or buy more holiday or buy more stuff for their family and fulfill the needs or could not be fulfilled without this headshot. And why it's important? Well, people cannot relate like, oh, I will spend £300 and I will get free time. What is time worth? I no idea. But I need to give real £300. And this, I don't know. So help them to figure out how to compare what we're getting. Otherwise, it's very hard to sell, isn't it? And when you figure this out, figure out by counting with your existing clients, and when you figuring this out, you know what to tell next client. You have proof, maths.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice there for anybody starting out in any business, but especially in the photography business, of course. Slav, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Where can people find your backdrops?
Well, everywhere on social media, because I'm very proactive on social media, so I'm everywhere with very easy handles. at Hand Painted Backdrops UK. And I have a website, handpaintedbackdrops.co.uk. So very easy to find me. And it's, as it says on the tin, I'm painting the hand-painted backdrops.
Fantastic. And of course, you find all of those links in the description of the YouTube video or the podcast description, depending on where you listen or watch this podcast on. And again, let me just remind all of our audio listeners, again, there's a fully fledged, fully technicolored version over on YouTube. If you want to see Slav's amazing backdrops in action, head over to YouTube and check it out there. That being said, of course, this is episode 141. Please get in touch with us. You can find us on Instagram, even on TikTok these days. And of course, we have a Facebook group as well. All you've got to do is go to Facebook, search for Camera Shake Podcast, and you'll find us there. It'll be super awesome to hear from you there. There we are. This is the end of 141.